Hello, my name is Matthias, and welcome to the FPL Scope and the weekly wildcard draft for Gameweek28, where I've actually changed my stance a little bit since the last weekly wildcard draft a week ago, where I had a different tactic to what I have now going forward. So last week I actually had wildcard in Gameweek27, obviously, which was last week, bench boost in 28, and then still have a team ready to go in Gameweek29 without a free hit. But I think looking at it now, and maybe I'm influenced a little bit by my own team, where I'm still going to free hit in Gameweek29 myself. I think it's potentially a better option to wildcard with a free hit in 29 in mind, because I think you just sacrifice too much when you don't have a wildcard for the rest of the season if you're transferring in a lot of Luton, West Ham, Aston Villa, those types of players. So I think your squad can be much stronger, much faster if you do the free hit 29 strategy, and you still will be able to have a pretty good team for Gaming 34 and Gaming 37 as well. The downside is the fact that you will be it'll be more of a struggle to have a really nice bench boost team in Gaming 37, which would be easier if you could use a free hit in Gaming 34 and just basically go from Gaming 30 until 37, building your perfect Gaming 37 squad. But I think that's a downside anyway if you're using your wildcard already, if you have to use your wildcard. So I'd say if your team is in a decent position and you worry too much about Gaming 29 and you want a free hit, or you want a wildcard now because of Gaming 29, I think you should probably just stick the course and do a free hit in 29 and try to build your best possible squad for Gaming 34. But yeah, either way, I'm not going to get too long-winded when it comes to the explanation, but just keep in mind that I'm free hitting in Gaming 29 with this team, so obviously most of the players in the squad will not have a team or not have a fixture in Gaming 29. But that will be the free hit week for this wildcard draft suggestion. And I've also made it this way just because I've seen so many different suggestions on, well, not really different because all of them are pretty much the same with the same exact squads basically, with players that play in Gaming 29 and also have a lot of double game weeks in Gaming 28 as well. So I just want to have this as sort of an alternative if you want to look into a different path, for example, if you want to free hit in 29 instead. So yeah, let's just go into it. And as always, the number one pick is going to be the player that I think is the most important player to have in a wildcard squad currently, or in a squad in general in FPL. And the 15th player is going to be the player that I'm the most unsure about having in my squad if I was wildcarding today, which I'm not for what it's worth. I'm wildcarding in Game Week 36, pretty much nailed on that or settled on that strategy myself. But yeah, let's go on to the number one pick, which is going to be Cole Palmer. I think he's a mainstay whether you are free hitting in 29 or not. Even though he doesn't have a fixture in 29, I think he's just too important player to have. So cheap, really good fixtures as well for Chelsea. They also have a double game week, potentially both in 36 and 37. They have more matches than the rest of the teams, especially if you're free hitting in 29. You can get a full starting team in Game 29 as well. Chelsea will have more matches than everyone else, and Palmer is just the best value player basically in FPL. So for me, he's the clear number one choice. He was that last week as well, and yeah, he keeps the spot. He's on penalties for Chelsea, can still score points without penalties. Just been the talisman for Chelsea in general, and been a fantastic player, one of the best top 10 or maybe top 5 players in the league this season. So yeah, Cole Palmer comes in at number one. Number two, we have Bukayo Saka. Kind of similarly, he's just been in terrific form lately, as Arsenal as well had just been fantastic, as we saw against Sheffield United. He was subbed at the half, and he still got 2 assists. So that tells you something about Saka and how amazing he and Arsenal are currently in the league. So yet another reason why you want more players that play or don't play in Game 29, because they are just really good, both before in Game 28 and after that, like you get with Saka and Palmer. Like, you would probably have to leave out potentially, maybe you can go with a wildcard team this week and still have Palmer and Saka and still have enough players for Game Week 29. But there's not that many more players you can have with a blank in Game Week 29. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why I think this tactic is better, because there are so many good players that you want to have in your squad currently and have it for the foreseeable future without too many transfers, because there's always going to be more things that happen, more injuries and stuff where you have to take more hits to bring in other players. You kind of want to have as many options as possible from Game 30 onwards if you're wildcarding already. So yeah, Saka, for what it's worth, amazing player. He's on penalties. Arsenal are the best team in the league currently when it comes to creating chances and also not conceding. So Saka comes in at number two. Number three, we have Dominic Solanke. Usually he would be probably number one with the game week that he has coming up against Sheffield United at home and Luton at home. Couldn't ask for a better game week or 2 better fixtures in a game week at least. Bournemouth aren't the best away from or at home actually when it comes to scoring goals and creating chances this season, but I still think Solanke is a fantastic captain's option, obviously. I think you should captain him pretty much regardless of who else you have in the team. I think Solanke is the best option by far this week. Better than Carlton Morris as well if you want to go with someone differential. I think Solanke plays for a better team and has better fixtures and has the proven track record as well. So Solanke is amazing this week, obviously. They also have another double game week coming up later. Solanke is another one who blanks in game 29. So yet another reason why you should free it in 29, because there are so many amazing players in that game week, like I've said a couple times already in this video. But I think if you still have your triple captaincy chip left, obviously this does not apply to anyone that wildcards this week, because you can't wildcard and triple captain in the same week. So if you're looking to wildcard now and you're also looking to triple captain Solanke this week, you can't do that. So just keep that in mind if you don't know that already. So I think Solanke is a really good triple captaincy shout if you still have your triple captaincy chip left. But obviously if you're wildcarding, you won't be able to do that, like I just mentioned. So, but he has really good fixtures. Game 28 is obviously fantastic game week for Solanke. The best you can ask for. And then after game 29 as well, as you can see, Everton at home, Crystal Palace at home, potentially also doubling in game week 34. Depends a little bit on what happens with Brighton in the Europa League, which is kind of weird, but that's just the way it is. But they have like a 50-50 chance of doubling in 34, but if they don't double in 34, they'll double in 37, which is also going to be nice for you if you're wildcarding this week, because you're not going to be able to wildcard in game week 36 or game week 35 to bring in the players that play in game week 37. So yeah, Solanke, regardless whether he gets a double game week game 34 or 37, it's going to be a really good pick either way. So yeah, he makes all the sense in the world as the number 3 pick in this weekly wildcard draft. Number 4, we have Heung-min Son, and honestly, he could probably be a bit lower, because I think, considering our free hitting in 29, he's not as essential as he would be if you are going with a tactic where you are not free hitting in 29. If you're not free hitting in 29, I think Son is basically the most important player to have. But in a squad like this where you're free hitting in 29, it's not that important to have a fixture in 29, obviously, because yeah, we're going to free hit a team that can play in that game week anyway. But after that as well, Luton at home, West Ham away, some decent fixtures. They also have a double in 36 most likely, and they also have Burnley and Sheffield United for the final 2 games of the season. So Son in general is also a really good pick to have in case you can't sell him. He is someone that I'm looking to sell personally in around game week 34 or so, and then potentially bring him back for game week 36, 37 or 38. Potentially game week 36 if they have a double there especially. But either way, Son is just going to be a really nice hold if you want to hold him for the entirety of the season, or if you want to sell him at some point. He also has really good fixtures in the immediate future, so Son is a really good pick still at number 4. Number 5, we have Gabriel Magalhaes. He's the best defender in the game, like I've said most of the season, to be honest. And yeah, another reason why free hit in 29 makes sense, because you want to have Gabriel, you want to have Saka, you want to have Palmer, you want to have Solanke. You want to have all these players both before and after game week 29, so that's why free hit 29, again, is my preferred tactic. But that's the last time I'll say it, I promise. I've said it too much now. But either way, Gabriel, set piece threat. We know this, nailed on defender for Arsenal. We know this already as well. And Arsenal just don't really concede any goals. I think they conceded 3 goals in 2024 in total. So they've played Liverpool as well, and they conceded only 1 goal in that game. So Gabriel is just amazing, and they have decent fixtures as well, notwithstanding the City fixture and the blank, obviously. But he's someone, especially if you have a lot of value tied into him, because he's gone up in price quite a lot since most of us brought him in. He's someone that is really valuable to keep in your squad. So yeah, he comes in at number 5. Number 6, we have Ollie Watkins, yet another player. This is actually the second and last player, apart from, this is actually the second and only player, or the only 2 players that play in Game 29 out of the squad, and that's Son and Watkins. So basically what that tells you is the fact that only 2 players are the best for Game 28, and then Game 30 and beyond, apart from Son and Watkins, who are actually players that are really good, even if you're free in 29. But Watkins, he has Tottenham at home in the first game. That should be a pretty high-scoring game, I think. So if you have both Son and Watkins, that could be a really nice high-scoring game for both of them. West Ham in the Game 29 fixture, obviously. Wolves at home, and then they have City, which is where you could potentially look to sell Watkins. But he's also someone that you could keep for the entirety of the season. If you get injuries or stuff like that, where you need to do other transfers than trying to get the players that double in Game 34 or 37, you could still keep Watkins for the entirety of the season, and he'll still be really, really good, even though he has some tougher fixtures, especially from Game 31 onwards. But in the immediate future, the next 2 or 3 games, really, really good for Watkins. And yeah, he's just a mainstay in FPL because he just keeps scoring goals. He's the highest scoring player so far this season, so he makes it in as the number 6 pick for this draft. Number 7, we have Mohamed Salah, the king of FPL. We spoke about Watkins having the most points in FPL this season, but the most points in FPL for the most of the past few 4, 5, 6, 7 seasons now has been Mohamed Salah, and he's someone that most people will bring in Game Week 30, but I think you can bring him in already if you're wildcarding this week. City at home, he usually scores quite a lot against City as well, so I think that's still a decent fixture if he's back ready to play, which is looking pretty likely that he will be, because he's in the squad for Sparta Prague now in the Europa League. So I think he'll be ready for the City game. It's such a huge game for Liverpool as well, so he could score there. So you might as well just get him already rather than waiting for Game Week 30 to come around to bring him in. So Salah, amazing player. You could obviously have a punt for Game Week 28 and then have the transfer or the funds ready to get Salah in for Game Week 30. But yeah, I just think Salah is just worth having. But you could potentially go with someone like a Bournemouth player, go with someone like Tavernier or Kluivert if you want to, and just have a lot of money in the bank and upgrade him to Salah or one of those players to Salah in Game Week 30. You could do that as well, but I think Salah is just nice to have him already and not worry about that transfer and have as many transfers as possible from Game Week 30 onwards, where you can set up your team for Game Week 34 and Game Week 37 to have a potentially a really good bench boost, and also having a potentially really good squad for one of those game weeks where you don't bench boost as well. So Salah going to be essential from Game Week 30 onwards, and I think he's going to be pretty good in Game Week 28 as well against Man City at home, so he comes in at number 7. Number 8, we have Neto in goal, the first goalkeeper of the bunch, and it's the Bournemouth goalkeeper, obviously, because they have a double game week fixture in Game Week 28, and they also have a double game week in either 34 or 37, like I mentioned. They also have pretty good fixtures in Game Week 30, 31, and 33, I think, as well. So I think Neto is the best goalkeeper to have in FPL currently, especially with the next fixture in mind, Sheffield United at home, or the next game week in mind, Sheffield United at home and Luton at home. Decent chances of clean sheets there, at least one, maybe two. You'd be unlucky to see him have two games without a clean sheet at least. So yeah, I think that was good. Has a decent amount of saves, has a decent bonus potential as well, on top of having good fixtures and a decent expected goals conceded, at least statistic when it comes to Bournemouth defensively. They have lost Senesi in defense, which is going to be a downgrade for them, so maybe that's going to put you off slightly, but I think Neto is currently still the best goalkeeper when you take into consideration the fixtures that he has. So Neto comes in at number 8. Number 9, we have Erling Haaland still. I know a lot of people are looking to sell him, especially those of you guys who are not free hitting in 29. I think that could be a mistake. Obviously, it's Liverpool away, then a blank, and then Arsenal, 3 really, really, really tough fixtures, and then Aston Villa after that as well, which is not even that easy, even though it's at home. So yeah, Haaland, he has looked a bit up and down since coming back from injury, but you also have to keep in mind the fact that he scored 5 goals against Luton in the Cup, so he has that in him still, where he can score a bunch of goals. So I think it's just too dangerous to go without him, especially if you are free hitting in 29, and you can bring in someone else in that game week. Even against Liverpool and Arsenal, he can still score a lot of goals. So Haaland, just wouldn't want to go without him, and especially seeing as he has gone up so much in price, and we know how it's sort of rigged that he's not going to go down in price as well too much either. So you're going to lose a lot of value if you sell him, and I think you're going to want to bring him back for Game Week 31, especially Game Week 32. But like from Game Week 30 onwards, he's going to be a really good asset to have. So yeah, Haaland, might as well just keep him and play him in the week against Liverpool as well, because he's just that type of player. Yes, tough fixtures, but it is Man City, it is Haaland, and they can score 5 goals just on a whim if they get the form all of a sudden up and running in the league, which they could do. So yeah, Haaland comes in at number 9. Number 10, we have Malo Gusto, and Chelsea is actually kind of interesting. I mentioned it with Palmer, I think, but they have more fixtures than everyone else if you're free hitting in Game 29, because they have 2 more double game weeks to go. Probably it's looking likely to be Game Week 36 and Game Week 37, 2 double game weeks in a row there. So having a really cheap Chelsea player who most likely will be able to play in those game weeks in Gusto. It's still a bit dependent on Reece James coming back from injury, but we know Reece James is basically constantly injured, and Gusto has played really well in this place as well. So I think Gusto is going to be pretty nice for the future as well. You can also see that fixture against Burnley at home in Game Week 30, so even in the immediate future, he's really good. If he loses his place, he'll still have some value for you before you have to sell him, and I think he has a really good chance of being the starting right back for Chelsea for the foreseeable future, because he has been playing really well as well. So they might play with Reece James as like a right centre back even when he comes back, and have Gusto as a wing back potentially in the future. So yeah, Gusto, been really impressed by him lately. really good when it comes to assists and stuff, really good going forward, and Chelsea could keep a cheeky clean sheet here and there. So yeah, Gusto comes in at number 10. Number 11, we have Ryan Ait-Nouri. He was someone that I brought in for 12 points last week, and I still think he has really good fixtures, both in the Fulham fixture now in 28, and also after Game Week 30. He also has really good fixtures and a double game week in most likely in Game Week 37, which is looking like a really nice double game week for Wolves if they get to keep the fixtures that they have in that or in those projected fixtures that they have in Game Week 37. I think they have 2 home games against, if I'm remember correctly, it's against like Sheffield United, and so we'll look up that later. But either way, really good fixtures in 37, which is a long time ago or a long time away still. But I still think Wolverhampton are a really good team. Ait-Nouri is nailed on in that team and playing really offensively for them as well, especially when they get Cunha and Hwang and those guys back as well. They're going to be so much better offensively, and I think that could happen, especially by Game Week 31, which is where you need Ait-Nouri from the Burnley game away in Game Week 31, as you can see. But even against Fulham now in this upcoming game week, I still think he's going to be decent. He had his first assist of the season last game week, and he's just really attacking, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him score a couple goals either from this point on until the end of the season. So Ait-Nouri comes in at number 11. Number 12, we have Garnacho from Man United, and this is down to the fact that Man United have a double game week in Game Week 34, very likely. And Garnacho is just a really cheap enabler, basically, to have in midfield. You can see from the 7 other attackers here, Garnacho's not going to play much because he's going to be on the bench for most of these game weeks. Maybe you can bench someone else if they have a really tough fixture, but I think you just want to start Palmer, Saka, Son, Salah, Solanke, Watkins, and Haaland for as many game weeks as you possibly can, basically. So Garnacho, just a cheap enabler who's going to double in 34, have a really good game in Game Week 35 where they play Burnley at home. Fantastic fixture if you didn't know already, which is why I'm leaning towards wildcarding Game Week 36 rather than wildcarding Game Week 35 myself. But if you're wildcarding already, I still think Garnacho is going to be a really good player for the foreseeable future. He has that major haul potential in him as well, where he can get double-digit returns. I haven't been able to get one of those myself so far this season, but if I have him for now until the end of the season, I'm sure I'm going to get 1 or maybe 2 of those as well. So yeah, Garnacho comes in at number 12. Number 13, we have Branthwaite, who is sort of a mainstay in this weekly Wildcard draft. He wasn't involved in the last weekly Wildcard draft because that was more with GW29 non-free hit in mind. And I feel bad just leaving him out because Branthwaite is just amazing. He did blank against West Ham this past game week, got only 1 point, conceded 3 goals against West Ham. But yeah, Everton have been really solid defensively. Branthwaite especially, he has some goal threat as well. He's just really cheap. He doubles either in Game Week 34 or Game Week 37. We don't know yet, but either way, he's going to be ready to play, and he's going to be really cheap still. If you bring him in now, he's going to be really cheap. A really cheap player who plays for a pretty good defensive team, who has a double coming up in Game Week 34 or Game Week 37. So Branthwaite makes a lot of sense as a really cheap enabler for the squad, which is quite expensive with a lot of expensive forwards and attackers with Salah, Haaland, Son. Basically some of the most expensive players in the game. Saka as well, really expensive. So Branthwaite is a nice, cheap guy to have just stashed on your bench whenever you need him. Whenever you need him to play, he can step in and get a lot of points, which he did for me. Got 9 points for me, scoring a goal, almost keeping a clean sheet, which would have been a nice 15-pointer as well when I played him back in Game Week 26. But Branthwaite is someone who's really nice plug and play, and someone you could easily bench as well if you don't want to bench any of your other starting players. So yeah, Branthwaite is a really good asset to have in FPL in general, and that's why he's number 13 in this weekly Wildcard draft. Number 14, we have Dubravka back in goal for Newcastle. They have the double game week in 34 most likely, where Dubravka will be really good. Also game week 35, they have Sheffield United at home, another really good fixture. But before that, I think I would just play Neto every week because I think Neto is a better goalkeeper in total. But we have Dubravka for game week 35 or game week 34 and game week 35, where he's going to be really, really good. So yeah, that's why Dubravka is in this team basically. He hasn't had the best season, and he did keep a clean sheet this last game at least, so maybe Newcastle are turning it around a little bit, but defensively there's been pretty poor this season, but they do have the qualities defensively to have a really solid defense as they showed last season. So I think Dubravka still, especially for his price, is still a really good asset, or not a really good asset, but he's still a decent asset in FPL and a decent backup goalkeeper for the double game week in 34. And in the game week 35 fixture where they play Sheffield United at home, I think he's really good for those fixtures. So he comes in at number 14 for that reason. Number 15, we have another Newcastle player, and that is Sven Botman. Again, this is number 15, so he's the one that I'm most unsure about. Could have someone like Munoz from Crystal Palace there. I think he is a decent shout. He also has a double gaming fixture in game 34 most likely. You might want to go with someone like him instead. But I think Botman is pretty solid. Plays for Newcastle. Could turn it on defensively, hopefully, if you have this team. But Botman is another player you can just stash on your bench, basically, and have him for those fixtures in 34 and in 35, like I mentioned with Dubravka, basically. So, yeah, he's just in there for that reason only. But I could see you going with someone else, someone around the same price. Maybe you want to go with Doughty still, even though you don't really need him for 29 in this instance, where we're free hitting in 29. Doughty still has a double game week in the immediate future. But still, Luton, they have exactly as many fixtures left as Newcastle if you free hit in 29, because then you don't really have that 29 fixture to worry about. So yeah, might as well just have Botman, who has just as many fixtures as Doughty and plays for potentially a better defense in Newcastle, as we'll see. But yeah, that's basically the whole squad. As you can see, a lot of green names, which means that they are new since last week, and that's mostly down to the fact that I've changed my tactic a little bit. I think Ait-Nouri and Branthwaite were already, and Dubravka, I think all those three guys were in the weekly wildcard draft in game 26 before I changed my stance on the chip strategy if I was wildcarding this early. But now that I changed the tactic again, and I'm not looking to, or I am looking to free hit in 29 with this weekly wildcard draft, then a lot of players have dropped out since I had a different tactic with no free hit in 29 last week. So a lot of players have dropped out, and they are the following. Basically, all the players that have fixtures in game 29, basically. Number 7 from last week was Maddison for Spurs. If you are on a tactic where you are not free hitting in 29, he's obviously someone you really should look into, because he is going to play for Spurs and be a really good attacking asset for Spurs when you need him to in game 29 if you're not free hitting that week, obviously. Also, if you're free hitting in 29, he could be in your squad. Also could be Richarlison if he's ready to play. We'll look a bit closer on the game 29 free hits team that I would have proposed as well after I go through these players. But yeah, Maddison is a really good player, even if you are looking to have a player. If you're free hitting 29, he's still a decent player both before and after game 29. But with free hit 29 in mind, he just drops out because of that. And that's the same for Senesi. Obviously, he's injured as well. Easy to drop him. Doughty, tough player to omit, even with free hit in 29 in mind. He's a tough player to omit, but the fact that they have 2 away fixtures in the double, I'm just not sold on that, especially when it comes to keeping clean sheets. Doughty is pretty good offensively in terms of getting a lot of crosses in, getting a lot of set pieces in, but I just don't trust him enough, especially as he is someone that I had in my team, and he pretty much underwhelmed for me. He's just someone that I don't really trust as much to have, so I just prefer Gusto, Ait-Nouri, Branthwaite, potentially also Botman, or someone like Munoz for the foreseeable future, if you're free hitting in 29 as well. So Doughty drops out. Udogie, another decent option. I think all Spurs players are pretty good, whether you're free hitting or in 29 or not, because Spurs are a really good team. And their fullbacks like Udogie and Pedro Porro do contribute a lot offensively. So Udogie is still a good pick, but again, don't need him in 29 in this with this tactic. And then we have just better options to have defensively for the game weeks after game 29 as well. Jared Bowen, the same, plays in 29. He has a really good fixture against Burnley now in 28 as well. So he is also someone that you could potentially have rather than Salah, and then sell Bowen to Salah in game week 30, like a lot of other people are looking to do that game week. So maybe you want to do that tactic instead. Maybe you want to go with someone like Tavernier or Kluivert instead of Salah. That is a viable strategy, but I think just having Salah is just a better option. So that's why Bowen has dropped out of the team. Emerson, same thing. Again, game 29 doesn't matter in this draft, so he drops out, but I still like him as a pick. And then Areola as well, the final West Ham player. Gone from 3 West Ham players to 0 West Ham players in this weekly wildcard draft, which hurts my heart a little bit as a West Ham fan, but with the tactic that I have for this wildcard draft, it makes all the sense in the world to not have West Ham players, because they basically don't have the best fixtures from game 30 onwards, and you don't really want to be stuck with 3 West Ham players or 2 West Ham players from game 30 onwards, so they've all dropped out of this team. But I did mention that I was going to look at game 29 and my potential free hit team in 29, which would be more optimal, obviously, than if you transfer in a bunch of game 29 playing players, like the players that I just went through, Maddison, Senesi, or not Senesi, he doesn't play, but Doughty, Udogie, Bowen, Emerson. A lot of these guys will be in the game 29 free hit as well, so that's sort of like a point in favor of doing a wildcard now where you free hit in, or where you don't free hit in 29. But yeah, I think this is just a better way of maximizing your potential for the foreseeable future, basically. But let's take a look at my free hit 29 team as it stands. Just a couple of interesting players to mention here who could be back from injury. We saw Brian Mbeumo be back in training for Brentford now. Maybe Game 29 is a bit early for him, but hopefully he's going to be back for Game 29, and that will be a huge advantage for those of us who are free hitting in 29, because he is a really explosive and a really good player who could get a lot of points being back, playing against Burnley, one of the worst teams in the league, with Tony, and Brentford just being really good offensively. So Reguilon and Mbeumo and Tony are three players that I don't really want to have before or after 29, but I think they are perfect for exactly Game 29 with the Burnley fixture. Reguilon has been really attacking lately. I think he's also a really good player to have. If you're not free hitting in 29, then you would probably wildcard in Reguilon this week as well. But yeah, especially with 29, Reguilon and Mbeumo, Tony, if they're all fit and ready to play that game week, seems like a really nice triple up. We have a couple other triple ups because we tried to maximize like the fixtures here. We only have 4 fixtures to choose from, obviously, so picking the players from the teams that you want to back to score in these games is probably the way to go. Spurs is definitely a team that I would back. Yes, they play Fulham away, which is actually a pretty tough fixture when it comes down to it. Fulham have been pretty decent lately, so maybe you don't want to back Spurs this fully, but they are the best team that plays in Game 29. So I think it's only right to triple up on them. And I think also you should triple up on attacking players, especially if Richarlison is back and fit to play. He would be a really nice differential now that a lot of people have sold him for 29 if he's back again for 29 and the free hit plans in this instance. Son, obviously a mainstay, could potentially be captain. It's either him or Tony, I think, depending on what Tony does in this upcoming game week in 28, which is against Arsenal, I think, which is a tough fixture, obviously. But yeah, Son is a no-brainer in this team, and Udogie as well, the cheapest out of him and Pedro Porro. You could go with Pedro Porro if he's fit to play in 29 as well. Could potentially be a better option. As you can see, 13 million in the bank, so going with Porro rather than Udogie is not going to be an issue at all. But I think Udogie is maybe just as good, if not better offensively than Pedro Porro for FPL as well, so he makes it into the team. Then we have one player each from Aston Villa and West Ham in the starting 11, and that is Bowen from West Ham and Watkins from Aston Villa. I think this fixture is pretty hard to predict. West Ham have had a pretty decent record against Aston Villa the last few seasons, but Aston Villa are just a much better team this season than West Ham. Even though West Ham have done pretty well in the table, Aston Villa are a better team than West Ham currently. But West Ham play at home. Paqueta is back for West Ham. That helps a lot when it comes to scoring goals. So I think just basically securing this fixture with one attacking player from each, it sounds good. I think both teams will score. It's probably going to be Bowen for West Ham, and it's probably going to be Watkins from Aston Villa if we have a goal scorer from each. I think they are the most likely to score. So yeah, both of those guys makes it into the team as well. And then we actually tripled up on Luton, which I think is kind of controversial, but at the same time they have probably the best fixture in Nottingham Forest at home. And I think Morris is on penalties, obviously, for Luton. He's going to be a decent pick. Maybe Adebayo is ready to play for this game. Maybe he's a better pick than Morris again. You might want to go with Nottingham Forest rather than going with Luton in this game as well, because this is a pretty open game. I think it could go both ways. Obviously, it's a huge match for the relegation fight for both teams, but I think Nottingham Forest or Luton, considering they play at home, I think they just have better assets for this game week. So Morris on penalties for them, he's the striker. Doughty on set pieces in general for them, he's the defender. And then you're just going to have to back Kaminsky as the final goalkeeper. Obviously, if Mbeumo's not ready to play, I would drop him and bring in someone else, maybe someone like someone from Nottingham Forest, potentially someone like Elanga, for example, who I have on the bench here. And then I would have Flecken in goal and double up with the defense against Burnley, because Burnley away, Nottingham Forest at home are probably the two easiest fixtures. Spurs is the best team, and Aston Villa and West Ham have really good players that can score points. So yeah, I think this is the best team for Game 29 if you're feeding in 29. And just to show you how the rest of the season would unfold with this plan in place and all the potential transfers that I'm going to use with this tactic, I'm not going to go through each and every transfer in each and every game week, but I'm going to hit the few key points which you might be worried about with a free hit 29 strategy. So let's just go through them. Basically, game week 34 is the first game week that you might be a bit worried about, because this is the game week where a lot of people will free hit. If you're not free hitting in 29, you're most likely free hitting in 34. But I still think this is a pretty solid team with a lot of double game week players. You basically only have in the starting lineup Branthwaite, Salah, Saka, and Haaland, who don't have a double game week. And Haaland, Saka, and Salah are players you want to have regardless, I think. I don't know, maybe you want Elise and Gordon and stuff with the double game week rather than Salah and Saka. Maybe if Solanke doubles in this game week, maybe you want him rather than Haaland, but I don't think it's that much between them, basically. They have decent fixtures, even though all are away. Fulham away, Wolves away, Spurs away. 3 teams that could concede a lot of goals, so I don't really mind them. Branthwaite, in his own right, could have a double game week in 34, like I mentioned. Not sure if it's going to be 34 or game 37, but either way, he's going to be really nice for this fixture. So I think this is a really strong team for 34. Probably not a good bench boost team because you have basically Wolves players against Arsenal and then Chelsea players against Brighton away. Not the best fixtures, but at the same time, you're benching Palmer away to Brighton. So maybe this is a decent game week to actually bench boost still. But I think with this setup, I think game week 35 is probably the best bench boost game week. You can see here, Jose Salah playing against Luton at home, decent fixture for him. SA against Fulham away, decent fixture for him. Branthwaite against Brentford at home, decent fixture for him. And Gusto against Arsenal away. Not the best, but it's still an alright fixture. And you still have a really good team for the starting lineup as well. So I think 35 is looking decent as well with this tactic in mind. Then 36, the downside here would be only having one Spurs player, but I don't think it's that important to have that many Spurs players. Yes, they have a double game again 36, but they don't have a double in 37. And if we're moving to 37, you can see that I have basically a full starting squad of double game week players, apart from Son, who plays Burnley at home, which is still a really good fixture. The bench, again, not the best here with Man United players and Aston Villa, or Man United and Newcastle players, because you are sort of maximizing 34 and 35 with Newcastle and Man United, seeing as they both have a double in 34 and have the best fixtures in 35. Man United against Burnley at home and Newcastle against Sheffield United at home. You don't want to miss it if you are free hitting in 29. You don't want to wildcard in 35 because you want to keep these players in 35. And then potentially if you're not wildcarding, you could wildcard in 36 like I'm looking to do myself and bring in a lot of Spurs players, have the 3 Chelsea players, and have a better team set up for game 37 where I could bench boosts rather than having these guys. But yeah, even with this tactic, I still think I have a really good team for the starting 11 especially. So yeah, it's looking pretty good for the key game weeks, even if you're free in 29, I think. So that's why I prefer this tactic. Maybe you don't. Maybe you want to not free it in 29. If that's the case, then there are a bunch of other content creators you could look at and look at their weekly wildcard drafts or their wildcard drafts because they don't do it weekly like I have. So yeah, if you're not familiar with the series, I basically do this every week, regardless of if it's a major double game week or a blank game week or if it's just a normal game week on a Tuesday. I'm still doing the weekly wildcard draft for every single game week as I've done this whole entire season. So yeah, I hope you can subscribe if you like that idea and if you like the thought of that in future videos. I also have a lot of different videos as well. This week has been sort of a lesser week because I was kind of busy in the weekend, so I wasn't able to watch the games, so I couldn't do the FPL eye test on Monday, which I usually do, where I look back at the fixtures in the weekend from an FPL perspective. But yeah, the weekly wildcard draft is coming out. The FPL Scope podcast, which might be without Kevin this week, is coming out as well this week. And then finally, I'm going to have my team selection and my future plans myself for my own team, which is looking pretty close to this wildcard draft. So I think it's actually pretty well set up for the future, this wildcard draft. And I think my own team is pretty well set up for the future as well, with free hits in 29 in mind. And with that all in mind, thank you for watching. I'm going to end this video with that now and start doing some more stuff editing for future videos. So see you next time. Thank you for watching and goodbye.